Hey, I'm Robert Biehl, and you're about to watch an episode of my podcast, The Biehlcast, shot live at Kinship Cafe in Independence. I sit down with the owner, TJ Roberts, and technologist Herston Fails. We talk about building culture, community, and robot dogs.
And they'd be like, Bob, and I'd be like, no, Robert, because nothing makes you feel more like a car salesman than being like, hey, I'm Bob Biehl. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I wasn't, now there's a handful of friends of mine that are very close that started calling me Bobby to irritate me decades ago, and now it's weird if they don't. They're cool. Fair. So anyway, hey, I'm Bob Biehl, and you're watching an episode of my podcast, The Biehlcast, shot here at Kinship Cafe. And I am fortunate. I've got TJ Roberts, the owner of Kinship Cafe, and I've got Herston Fails, co-creator of Storytailor and
co-founder.
Co-founder.
Yeah, I wouldn't take creator credit, but yeah, co-founder.
Okay.
And I am chief strategy officer.
Okay.
At Storytailor.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. All right. Well, TJ, thank you very much for having us here.
Oh man, pleasure to have you.
Yeah, I have. I've been in here at this location a few times. I discovered it over when it was in KCK, and I love the vibe. I love the atmosphere. I love the art. I love what you've created in terms of a community here and what you're trying to create. And I guess my question is, what does coffee? What does coffee mean to you?
Oh man, in simplicity, coffee plus people equals community.
Mm-hmm.
And so my efforts are to provide the best service, quality of coffee, and vibe that welcomes anyone. And so we do our best. It's not just me; it's a whole team. So I'm super thankful for them. But coffee is for me, it's very spiritual. It's very ancestral. It's there's a lineage that I follow to understand and carry knowledge for me to carry equity over that knowledge.
Okay.
And that allows me to manipulate coffee in ways where, and Herston's heard it many times too, where I'm here to support a black-owned business. I don't really drink coffee. I'm more of a tea person. Actually, I'm not really great with coffee. It's acidic. It hurts my stomach. All of the types. And I think that the mind is shifted dramatically after they've tasted ours.
Yeah.
And so that to me is a rewarding experience, obviously, to be a part of, because I've roasted that coffee, I've sourced it, I've went through time to build that knowledge, like I was saying. So, to see that being served, and then allowing that to allow me to pay other people that are of the same color, of BIPOC, new to coffee, new to the experience, and then providing events that host BIPOC vendors, just expanding more into our ecosystem behind the coffee that's served that day. There's so much that it is understanding that it's a catalyst for community.
Yeah, I think, I see that every day as I go out throughout the community and go into different coffee shops. But,
For sure.
But like, why coffee? Was there a moment that you had that you were just this is what I want to dedicate my life to? Oh, and real quick before you answer that, Herston, how do you feel about coffee?
So I love coffee. Coffee, tea, all types of infusion beverages. I met TJ years ago, pre-COVID, because now that's how you define how long you've known people.
Right.
So technically pre-quarantine. I met him at a cupping at Messenger a long time ago, but while he
2019.
You were breaking down the vision of what kinship would come, and so I was at a cupping. So clearly, I love coffee. You don't go to cuppings if you're not a fan of coffee, and ultimately, a cupping, for those who are not familiar, is the opportunity to it's kind of a process where you taste typically different roasts, different roasts of coffee, mostly single origin to determine the notes. And then those notes or those different types of coffee are then blended into their own type of coffee. So
Yeah.
when when you're getting bags out of the grocery store, you're typically getting a blend. And then there's also single origin, where it's essentially one being sourced from one location and typically roasted in a singular fashion.
Yeah.
And so you're tasting those singular elements.
I'm loving this right
combined
now. I'm just loving this.
into one blend. And so I nerd about a lot of things. My moniker is Curious Nerd. It's very literal. It's not just hyperbole.
Yeah. Well, so you talk about a cupping. One of the most surreal experiences of the last couple of years for me was when you open the new location. It was a Saturday morning. I woke up. It was like 8:30. I roll over, open up my phone, and I am part of an influencers group that was invited to the cupping here.
Yeah, facts.
And I'd done 10, 12 episodes of the podcast, and
we're gonna
in bed.
do more of that, bro, because I thought that was so educational for some people.
No,
that
it was
had
cool.
never-
But for me, all I saw was, I'm an influencer. I'm like, I think I've sort of, the podcast has made it. And I remember going upstairs, and my wife was up, and she's like, "Hey, can you do those dishes?" And it's sort of like, "Well, babe, I mean, I could, but I'm an influencer." And so that was
Don't
was
let it go to your head, boss.
yeah. I mean, I've since I've gotten past it. I've had some rough episodes, so I'm back to my feet are back on the ground. Okay, so back to what I was asking you though. But why was coffee? Why is coffee the medium? What was it? Did you have an event that you were like, this is the thing? Was there this magical cup of
I'm trying to
coffee?
keep it short because it was a multitude of things in my life that I think pointed me in this direction. My father's a pastor, and so as a person who was adopted, you're different from what you sleep around, what you grow up around. You know that you're different, and so
How were you different from the?
Like my parents were white.
Okay.
They currently are Trump supporters. They're different in a lot of ways than just skin tone. But there's still love, and there's
Right.
still respect and honor for both the likes. And so I think for me, in the growing up that I had, or upbringing that I had, at 10 years old, I realized that coffee was this unique thing that in church when my
10
dad,
years old?
yeah, I'm 10, and I'm at this time I'm playing drums for my dad's church, so I'm a musician. So that's something that's always been part of my vernacular, is playing music and understanding music and developing an ear for it. And so having a jazz background and understanding, just because it's not an access. My mom did not grow up singing, Aretha Franklin and any of those likes. We grew up around praise and worship music.
And so did you have coffee at practice? Is that,
We
is,
have,
is that
so because I'm on the worship team, and we're showing up for practice
at 10?
We're showing up. Church starts at
No, you were 10 years old.
Yeah, I'm playing
Yeah.
drums at 10
Right
for my
on.
dad's church. Yes, and so as I'm doing that, I'm playing drums, and I'm making coffee early because I'm there for the worship team.
Yeah.
Right, and so I'm there learning how to put Folgers in the Mr. Coffee machine at that age, right?
Right.
And then I started to see, at 10, the coffee break situation, and how, there was a lieutenant from Fort Riley, and then there was a guy who was in college, and then there was these other people from India, and there's but the coffee break, they didn't really have much community outside of the church with themselves. You know what I'm saying? But when there was a coffee break, they would all sit around and chat and catch up and talk about their families and connect with each other as people. And so from my perspective, I saw that as that's a unique experience right there. I don't see that in real life. You know what I'm saying? I see that here in church between the time of literally 10:20 a.m. to my dad having to be all right, y'all come back to the service. We're going to start now.
Yeah.
To start preaching his message. So that was an early understanding and like an epiphany of like that's a unique characteristic
Yeah.
of this beverage
Yeah.
that supersedes background, determined or divisiveness of color of whatever,
Yeah.
And so that was one thing I would say I noticed. And then as I got older, I started getting into business. I ran an insurance practice for almost 10 years. And as I was doing that, all my meetings were in coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to Roastery, I'm going to Black Dog, I'm going to Oddly, I'm going to Second Best,
Yeah.
Blip, all the likes, right? And to the likes of by the time I'm 2019, I actually am working for the Roastery, and that's who gave me my first shot. And I'm super forever thankful for that, because obviously that catapulted me to where I'm at today. But in that process, I was working open, like, I'm working a team of 3 people on my insurance practice. We are selling about $180,000 in premium a year. We're probably selling more like 220, but after retention, we're probably around 180 to 190,000 in premium a year. So I'm busy doing that through the weekdays, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I'm working close at the Roastery.
Okay.
And that's me learning how to do coffee. Yeah, fam. And that was just all about dedication, but also like if I'm gonna run a coffee business, I better know how to do this. You know what I'm
I mean,
saying?
it's sort of impressive that you have this experience when you're younger, and it's interesting because, Ian at Blip, his story, he's about the same age, like second, third grade when he had his sort of experience with coffee. So I'm doing mortgages. I would find myself meeting in coffee shops all the time, and I enjoy the fact that. Maybe the people around me don't, but, if they're not clearly on their laptop doing some work, I'm probably just going to start a conversation.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, like, that's the other part where I go back to the simplistic understanding of what I said first is coffee plus people equals community. And it's very rare that I'll see somebody in here by themselves having a cup of coffee.
Really? Because I feel like most of the time I'm by myself.
And there are people that are like that because they're working, but you also are scheduling meetings and you're there because there's meetings, right? And so when you're also looking around you, you see other people having meetings.
Yeah.
You see other people catching up, having girl time, whatever that is. That's dope, and that's what kind of it's for, And I think in certain parts of the KC Metro, that is we kind of get so accustomed in the city where on every corner we're blessed with Kansas City coffee, man.
Yeah.
There's some great shops in the Metro that I'm just always thankful to even be mentioned by, what I'm saying, or near. But out where we're at, man, we is in the cut.
Yeah.
And it's only 15, 20 minutes past city limits.
Yeah, and we talked about earlier. We were talking about just in terms of location, like just the flow of where I go throughout my week. It
this
does
is
not
out of
take
people's
me.
flow.
Yeah, it's and so what do you do to change that? How do you grow a community? And that
how do you make sense of a business that can thrive without credit, without loans, in a place where nobody else would go?
Yeah.
Coffee must be damn good.
that's
you feel what I'm saying?
No,
and if it's affordable
agree.
for them to have, then for your time driving, we saved you probably some money in your sale.
Yeah.
Right? But the vibe and for you to be able to come here, let your hair down and enjoy the time, a lot of places wouldn't want you to enjoy your time.
Yeah.
They want you in and out. They have a transactional amount of that, sales they're trying to hit every day for the rent,
So let me ask you. So Herston, you, what your background?
Yes.
Technology.
Yes, at the highest level of technology.
Okay.
He's laughing because I do a lot of things in tech. At my core, I've actually kind of been a technologist since I was a kid. I was the kid who had or asked for like the erector set for Christmas, or robotics, which nobody even knows was a thing. But I talked to my mom now, and I was like, man, it must have been really easy for you guys to find my Christmas gifts because I'm asking for all the nerdy stuff.
Just
that
go to Radio Shack.
Yeah,
if there was such a thing back then.
Yeah, like so anything nerdy where you could build something, I probably had the set for it. From Lincoln Logs to Legos.
I have seen this man take his car completely apart
Oh yeah,
and
you were
completely put it all
'cause he
back
had-
together
he had to-
and diagnosed his own car
He had
with
to
like,
drive. He had to
oh,
drive.
actually,
me for
it's
that.
an alternator issue
Yeah.
after changing the battery.
So like, so that's the
That's
whole
handy.
thing. Like people, when as I grow the brand, if you will, of who I am, at my core, I've always been a creative problem solver, and I've just been a curious nerd the entire time. Like,
Yeah.
and I take pride in the idea of being a nerd. I think a lot of times it was kind of frowned upon. And as a person who, as a kid, grew up in the 90s, the flip up glass is kind of a nod to Dwayne Wayne from a different world.
Right.
Because he was the first example of an African American male who wasn't a nerd trope. I think they tried to start him off that way when the show like came on early. But then, as he matured over time, they were graceful enough and empathetic enough to allow him to grow into manhood. He still retained that nerdy side of him, but he was cool. Like he had on the Jordans, and he always looked fresh. There was never the pocket protectors. There's none of the weird tropes that come with that stuff. So, as a nod to that character and its influence on me. Now I do operate in that way. I do coding, front-end development, some full stack stuff depending on the project. I do a lot of UI UX design. And within Storytailor, I'm doing a blend of a little bit of everything.
So can you give me a summary of what Storytailor is?
Right. So
Listen to this. This is important.
Storytailor is a platform that allows anyone, anywhere, in any language to create a custom story for their child or the little one in their life in about 90 seconds. It creates a story. It creates story art. The art takes a little bit longer now. We had to extend the time for artistic continuity. And it'll take the language that you enter in your story idea, and it'll build an entire 3-act, 26-beat story out of that. You also get audio playback, off-screen activities.
It's incredible.
Because
it is incredible.
Our objective is to make sure that parents, significant others, guardians, godparents, grandparents are spending time with the child in their life. We want to make sure that you're not just doing things on screen. You start on screen, and then you have these really cool off-screen activities that come with every single story you build. It's contextual to every story.
It's like
it allows you to do that.
I don't know.
And he has a piece of art up here.
It's incredible.
Here in Kinship, where you can scan it and kind of go read a story.
Yeah, there's a QR code to scan. But I'll tell you this, like with the as Herston was mentioning, our understanding of each other and its longevity, right? Yeah. This has been something that he's been talking about doing for a long time, and he's been building it out for a long time. So, like, I'm really proud of him for putting it into fruition, and not even finally, but, like, the timing of it is, like, so perfect. You know what I mean? And then the other part, too, is when we have these conversations, Herston and I, we typically get into we are in some doomsday stuff, we is getting.
I try to talk him off the ledge.
He keeps me off the ledge.
Yeah, I talk him off the ledge.
It's me in the doomsday.
He's in the doomsday scenario.
I'm a
so
realist,
I can see
curious.
that. And so the interesting thing about, I'm sorry.
No, what I was gonna say is, like, one of the things that it helps a lot of is that ingenuity with what is relevant today with parents and how they work with their children or handle their children when they're not behaving or acting out. But it reinforces in a positive way this understanding of quality time.
Yeah.
The quality time that I think kids don't get with their kids that you see in school act out, right? And that be a whole problem for a person who's not the parent to have to take the responsibility to cope and manage. Now, this is an element that not only parents can use, nurses can use it at hospitals, teachers can use it with children, because of those ingenuity of factors he's put into play of making it a real life. Like, let's bring this story to real life.
Is he part of your sales team?
No,
he does a pretty compelling.
That's why we've talked about it. So he's bringing it to life.
I want to do some level setting, right? So first of all, I did not create Storytailor. My business partner, JQ, did. He's an author and illustrator. JQ and I have known each other for over 15 years. We met at the Apple Store, right? So he's always
Here
been,
in Kansas City?
Yes. So we were met at the Apple Store in Leawood, and he's been on this mission to allow for, I guess, the decentralization of imagination, allowing it to be fully explored by anyone and everyone. He and I are both artists, have been since we were kids. He and I both had very similar situations where we wanted to show our art in very specific ways, but were sometimes encouraged, but oftentimes discouraged by being able to express ourselves in whatever our medium was, typically rooted in the fears of our families or parents or guardians, right? And it's not anything to hold over their head so much as it is to understand that.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, so I had a very keen interest in fashion design and illustration. Like TJ, my father was also a pastor.
So is mine. Just so you know.
Wow.
I mean,
Crazy.
Wow.
So
there are a lot of us out
This
there.
is
There's a ton of
full
pastors'
circle.
kids.
Danny, you too?
So-
You got all right. He's like, oh yes, me too. Sorry.
So what was crazy is my father's fears of, I guess, my sexuality would be tied to the industry of fashion illustration, and when I'm telling you I was deep into it, I knew what I wanted to do. One of the projects I made in high school is I built a runway and then like presented it in a fashion design class that I had. I was
That's
like
dope.
the only person to do that. I had a whole brand lined up. I had done super deep research into the fashion industry. I knew I either wanted to work for Oscar de la Renta or Carolina Herrera, and my backup plan was Donna Karan because all of those like designers had classic silhouettes, and kind of ageless fashion. And so
Yeah.
I'd done that kind of deep knowledge into it, and my dad's fears of
How old were you?
Let's see.
You see why I invited Herston to be on the
Yes.
show?
Probably when I got serious into fashion, I was more like 15, 16.
Okay.
But if we go even back further than that, and this is the irony of the robot that I have now, the very first thing I remember saying I wanted to be was a robotic engineer.
Okay.
Like if I think back far enough in terms of an actual career title, that was the very
Yeah.
first thing I wanted to be. And ironically enough, I own a robot dog now. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I think it's interesting with the two of you because you have so much of what goes on with technology. I think
Yeah.
in the marketplace today
Yes.
is designed to kind of basically boil us down to an individual. And when we boil ourselves down to individuals and we think just at an individual level, it becomes a challenge to maintain a community. Well, a coffee shop is an anchor for a community. And so, you can look at, all you have to do is look around and you can see that TJ, art is important, time spent together is important. So, do you find, so with that in mind, a lot of people are very dark in terms of what they look at with the future of technology, with the future of AI, get very dystopian, but you don't have that same attitude. And so,
Right.
So the focus is on the positive.
So I do want to be clear. It's not a blind optimism.
Yeah.
I had the honor of going to the Johnny Carson Emerging Tech Center in Lincoln, Nebraska. And one of the things that came up in our discussion is this concept of chasing dystopia, right? So I've really been ruminating on this for a minute. And ultimately, I found it very interesting that we spend an inordinate amount of time figuring out all the ways things will go horribly wrong when it comes to anything. Technology is one of the things.
TJ, do you ever worry about anything?
Right. And so, but here's what's really fascinating. And you'd have to do the research to see what the exact numbers are. It kind of oscillates between 83 and 86% of the things that we think about, especially negative things, never actually come to fruition. So we spend a wild amount of time imagining worst case scenarios under the guise of protecting ourselves from imminent doom. And what's fascinating is if we were to invert that and possibly think about all the ways we could actually use things to benefit us, we might put ourselves in a better position, because ruminating on all of the negative things creates a kind of a field of manifestation that ultimately it will become that. And I think a lot of people chase being right over resolving challenges and issues and or solving problems. Yeah. And so I've spent a lot of time. I even did a bunch of talks at Keystone Collab, going up and talking about emerging tech. I own a drone. I own a robot. I've done things using VR. I have a VR headset. Like, I work in artificial intelligence. And I'm very intentional about being a coach who played the sport. You know, Steve Kerr played with Jordan. As much as people love Popovich, you know, he never played, right? Yeah. So Steve Kerr will always get the respect because he was a legit player. And so I view it that way. You know, players love coaches who played. And so that's the approach that I take when it comes to technology. But I work to be a bridge between people's fears and the reality of what's actually out. Yeah. And then I try to prepare people to be on the level to understand what's coming so they're not running around afraid of everything. Yeah. But ultimately, chasing dystopia is the biggest issue we have right now.
Because ultimately, that was what your dog was for, was to like, it was like, people probably don't understand, like, why would a person, like Herston had it intentionally. He was on a wait list for that. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, like, you know, I remember asking him, like, well, why'd you get it? And he was like, oh, well, you know, a lot of people are going to be afraid of some of these things. And I want to be the person that kind of shows them that they're harmless and that, you know, they can be as companionable as an actual human dog, you know. And I think that's obviously been a proven story. There was like a viral video last summer or something of someone major from another major city.
He's from here.
Oh, he's from here.
Yeah, that was earlier this year. And here's the thing that people don't understand. First of all, we've had the dogs for 2 years. By the time people saw me walking the dog, I'd already had the dog for a year. It's not as
so there's a video that goes viral where
he's gonna ask a question.
Oh.
Why did you get a robotic dog?
Okay, so
do you like real dogs? Do you have an opinion of real dogs?
I love real dogs.
All right.
Always have. I've had real dogs growing up and everything.
We were gonna have to probably do some editing. Had you been like, yeah, I don't like dogs?
No. I love real. Actually, I just puppy sat last week because my JQ, the co-founder of Storytailor, he has a puppy, and so I had to watch him. And he's a puppy. He's like a teenage puppy, so he's like incredulous, and he does things like you shouldn't do, and it's like, but he's also adorable, and he knows it, so it's weird.
But I have this, not to interrupt, but I had this conversation about people.
Right.
Babies and kids are just little people.
Of course.
And puppies are just little dogs.
100%.
And so like the chaos that you associate with it is just it being like what it's supposed to be.
Absolutely. So I'll get to the root of your initial question. JQ and I would take these road trips in Nebraska because we were part of an accelerator up there. And, you know, these are like 3-hour trips up, 3 hours one way up and then 3 hours back. So this is where we would get our meeting time in, essentially. So we're talking like, okay, what can we do that like really differentiates us in the marketplace, not just in terms of SaaS, but or software as a service for people who aren't familiar. But what can we do to change people's perspective, alter people's minds? We are in the business of imagination. What can we do to shift people's imagination? And so I said, man, I've been looking at this company for like 4 years called Unitree. They make these robot dogs. He's like, oh, for real? I was like, yeah. So we took a look at it, and then we discovered they were pretty affordable. And it's like, okay, we could spend. So our grantors, we took them, once the check cleared, we took the first injection of those funds, and we dedicated it to buying these robot dogs. They were not happy about that. They thought, you guys are insane. This is the dumbest thing. This is a total waste of money, right? You know, keep in mind, if you were to do any type of ad campaign, anything substantial, it's going to cost you, know, 5, 6, maybe 10 grand to adequately cover your market. Man. So we bought these dogs.
For how long? 3 months?
Yeah. Right. So we bought these dogs for significantly less than that. And we knew, like, when we go to trade shows, when we go to anywhere, this will be the draw. And if you think about it, a lot of companies have had a version of the robot dog. I just saw the Red Bull cars, right? The retrofitted Red Bull with the cans.
The big hot dog.
Quick Trips doing robot.
Oscar Mayer robot.
Yeah.
Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. So there's all these things that are like that, but for whatever reason, the robots just like struck a different chord. So long story less long, it resonated with the people who gave us the money when we were walking the dogs downtown Lincoln. And I picked my dog up. By the way, that dog is super heavy, so
It
I
looks
do not
like it.
recommend it. But I had to walk with it for like 4 blocks because we were late. But JQ kept walking his, and so as he's walking it, a metro bus en route pulled over. The bus driver got off the bus to take a picture with the robot dog with his phone, right? Now, you would think the people on the bus who need to go to work and to school would be irritated. They weren't. They all had their phones out. And that's when it clicked to them like, oh, you guys are doing something different. And those dogs have, there's a couple of really key things. One, JQ and I are both African-American males, right, in tech. So that puts us in like a hyper minority. And with that, we knew that there's certain expectations and visuals that people set, and these robot dogs become massive differentiators, and they start to kind of calm people's conception of who we are. They have more questions than they make presuppositions. So that was part of it. We also knew that there were going to be some other little kids who looked like us, who have never seen anything like that, and for the first time in their life, they would have seen 2 African-American males walking around with these dogs going, wow, that's crazy that you have that. I can also be a technologist. So there was the reflective piece. We knew that was inevitable, and we've had that occur multiple times.
So
The representation, man, is incredible.
So you were in insurance. So you and I, we have that in common, the fact that we have
in
a sales background.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so for me, a big part of the success that I found that I had when I was selling Volvos back in the day, was if I would have a conversation that was not the conversation that was expected. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you can sort of like, somebody walks up to you, whether I'm selling mortgages or whatever, they expect it to be a certain kind of conversation. It's going to be a certain type of thing. Yeah. And if I can introduce something to it, it like shifts the balance in a way that like, maybe we can all be real now. Do you know what I mean? Because the guards sort of come down. For sure. And I imagine, I just try to wonder like how many like cars I would have sold back in the day if I walked up to the client with a robot dog.
A lot.
I mean, I think the other part too about it is like it was incredibly thoughtful.
Yeah.
Like the process he's been put, into building, Storytailor from the ground up. It was not like I resonate so much with what Herston has created because there's a trial and error craft. There's a trial and error craft to it, but it's like. I'll be texting him. He'd be like, it's 1 a.m. He's fixing bugs.
But it's like,
software,
I think there's an analogy to what you do with coffee, right? I mean, it's the thing. It's your process. It's your medium, right. And you put a lot of energy and a lot of thought into details.
I think to the likes of it, it's the actual journey. Like we didn't start. I'll speak for myself. I didn't start coffee to just say that I was a coffee shop owner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got into coffee to honestly compete against myself in providing the best space, coffee, and training that I could give my team. You know what I'm saying? And so from that perspective, I'm trial and error, but I'm focusing on always improving. When I look at Herston, that's his same demeanor. So he's not a person that's like going to panels and going out and speaking events going, I'm a black man in tech. He's like, you look at his work and he's in tech.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have to say much when he shows up with the dog. Oh, man, you're a black man in tech. You scan the QR code on the dog, takes it right to what he designed. You're a black man in tech. It's a whole different demeanor. And so, like, I value the friendship, right, that we've created, but I also have an incredible amount of respect for the creativity from nothing, like from the imagination of what you just saw in your head to actually be in pure physical form on my wall here at Kinship with your stuff. And so that's the part where I think for me in coffee, I see it the same way. You know, we get coffee that comes in that I imagine will taste good, and I get to reverse engineer and find the notes that profile in my palate the best, and then the validation comes from the sales and the comments afterwards, right? But most roasters don't have the validation like that firsthand, where I've roasted it, literally put it in my car, brought it here, put it in a roaster or in a grinder, ground it down, made a latte for somebody. The
Yeah.
response was immediate. You know what I'm saying? And in reality, that was the only thing that changed.
Yeah.
Right? If I have a system that I've made all the time, and we opened on black drip coffee and roastery coffee, that now has evolved into something completely different that is self-made, and we don't, the coffee's improved, the quality's better, well then that says a lot for what we're doing with our roast profiles.
Yeah, what I've found as I've had more and more of these conversations with business owners and entrepreneurs is that it's art. You know, you are, you know, manipulating like the physical world, whatever the medium or whatever it is that you're manipulating, and it's no different than you know, the paintings that are hanging on your wall. I mean, it is your
The process
passion.
is the same.
Yeah.
Like the process is the same. You look at somebody and they didn't create that to just be associated with the title of an artist.
Yeah.
No, there was a process that they enjoyed creating the art that made them become an artist.
So do you feel like through your process, because you're a roaster as well,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So do you feel like what you've learned over the years, you know, kind of like fine tuning and learning the nuances of you know, roasting coffee, presenting the cafe, do you feel like that process has changed and impact you as an individual?
100%.
Like the guy that started this thing is a different guy than what you have today.
Yeah, okay, so let me tell you a quick story. There's a farm that we support that's from Colombia. This Colombian farm is a woman-ran farm that has been under ownership for maybe 6 years with production, but in sales in the U.S., maybe the last 3.
Okay.
The first year, I think they did 4 or 5 bags. I think they're just now hitting over 100.
Okay.
It's great coffee. Okay. But when you are writing back and forth to some of these people, an email or letter, whichever way they can get communication to you, when you're able to communicate with them and then you hear that it's about to be harvest and they're hiring family and volunteers to come and they're literally taking weapons and running 24-hour shifts to secure every speck of their land because they're an Afro-Colombian farmer that is selling a premium coffee overseas to an American. Other locals who are purebred Colombians racially hate that. And they are tipped off by other people who only see what's exported, right? And so they get tipped off and are told to go manipulate, put pesticides, chemicals, harmful things that would ruin their harvest and their way of paying and making a living.
Yeah.
Okay, and so when you're hearing those stories and you're bringing that coffee into the United States and you're serving it to other people and she's asking you if it's even good, if anyone's even buying it, and you can't get people off of it, like how do you not share that?
Yeah, that's
You know what I'm saying?
that's
And how does that not impact how you process everything else in your life?
I went to recently. My wife and I took a trip to Costa Rica. And have you ever been to Costa Rica?
No.
So
It's on my bucket list.
So we went to. We were on the Pacific coast, and then we went into La Fortuna, which is in the middle of the country. And then you fly out of, I think, San Jose. But to get to that airport, you have to like go into the like you have to go over the mountain range. And you know, the coffee. There was a coffee shop that I went to, like I do. I found a place. I went there consistently. It was delicious. So while we're driving through the mountains to get to San Jose, you know, we're just going up, up, up. It's great. Looks like a rainforest. You know, it's like just, you know, like it could be Oregon, it could be Washington.
So green.
So but then we came up and we came out of the clouds, and it was these mountainsides of like rows of like coffee crops, and it was beautiful. It was stunning, and we were only maybe driving through there for about 30 minutes because we were trying to get to where we were going. And when you consider that, like, I mean, so in that particular situation, peaceful, it's beautiful. But when you consider like where these beans originate, you know, like high quality, good beans originate, and you understand that, you know, they're coming for me to have a coffee, you know, with the realtor. But the process that you just described and the absolute like threat that maybe somebody was under to produce that, it's hard to complain about coffee being too expensive in some ways. Do you know what I mean?
It incredibly is, and the other part is, the cataclysmic effect of Starbucks and the support of it,
Yeah.
right? That has been the tipping scale for, honestly, maybe the last 15, 20 years in coffee, is the fair trade, and how that has never been fair for the farmer,
Yeah.
to be honest. So trying to find ways where we are, respecting our lane, because we're just roasters, right? We're not farmers, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not I can take some pride in the way I've manipulated the coffee to taste a specific way. I'll take pride in that all day, and then I'll extend it with the lattes and the menu and the team, right? But it doesn't exist without the farmer.
Well, so I mean, you bring
None
up
of that does.
you bring up Starbucks. I mean, look, there are Starbucks all over this country that are supporting our people because that's where they make a living, right? I'm very intentional. I don't meet at Starbucks. If I'm a local business owner, I need to support local businesses. And a Starbucks at the airport, a Starbucks, around the metro, that's like, I can appreciate that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just the fact that like there's one on every corner is, to me, it's just like this. You want to talk about dystopia? Like, to me, it's just consumption and consumption and consumption, and I don't know. It's very dark. So I make a priority to be at these places, but there's a story behind. Oftentimes, there's a story behind the coffee.
Yeah, well, and I think the market's evolving and changing. I
Yeah.
think the industry of consumers are having more intentional thought behind how they're making their money and how they're spending
Yeah.
their money. And I think when you are finding that there are some common superpowers and influences that we can't control, right, that do manipulate our lives, and you see these organizations, coffee companies, assign motive to what a political social cue is, or what a person of a public figure is, then you're subscribing to something that is not even of your local vernacular of who you serve.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because the people who you serve is the values that you should have. So if you're talking about serving everybody, well, man, that means equity is across the board,
Yeah.
right? That means representation has and should be had, And so there's different ways that we're not going to operate and police, things to happen that shouldn't happen, And so for us, it's like the motto over here: good vibes only.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people understand that's pure,
Yeah.
and
I mean, I think that you've done an excellent job of capturing in the community. This coffee shop, the other location. I mean, that's all I ever felt was good vibes. But I mean, how do you feel about good vibes in AI, Herston? I mean,
that's a tricky question.
I think there's been a concerted effort to create a fear-based model to maybe prevent entry of anyone into the space of artificial intelligence. There's been a lot of confusion with language. Again, this is one of the things that I've spoken about at a couple of the talks that I've done at Keystone, to help people understand, first of all, AI is an umbrella term. It doesn't function in a level of singularity that people think. Artificial intelligence encompasses a bunch of different subsects of technological advancements. Most people think about, like the Chat GPTs of the world. Honestly, Chat GPT is a brand. GPT is the technology. It deals with generative transformers, which is its own thing, right? The idea of taking information in and then putting that information out based off of modeled data and predictive analysis, right? You also have computer vision, which is in a lot of like the ring-based cameras. So when a person walks up and that's mom, that's dad, that is also artificial intelligence, but it falls under computer vision, which is very different.
Yeah.
You have a myriad of different things that spin off. You have deep learning, which is a completely different thing from GPT, which is a completely different thing from computer vision, right? But because AI is a shortcut term that people use, it gets strapped to everything and then creates a fear-based model. I think the vibes could be good, which goes back to what I was saying before. If we weren't chasing dystopian outcomes, I think if we were to think about this in terms of how can we utilize these technologies in a way that helps us to solve our problems constructively, then we can have those good vibes. And I do my best to inform people of what a good vibe scenario looks like in the space of technology to make sure that we prevent people from continuing the fear-based narrative. And what I've really found interesting is when you want to get your teeth worked on, you don't go to an auto mechanic, right? Because auto mechanics aren't dentists. Vice versa. If your car needs to be fixed, you don't take it to a dentist because they're not a mechanic.
Well, you take yours apart, but
well, yeah. I don't use me. I'm an outlier.
Okay.
Like I'll get under the hood and I'll switch out my alternator by myself. That's neither here nor there.
okay.
My entire point around that is we have entrusted people who are not subject matter experts with being sources of truth without any type of due diligence to determine what makes you credible to make that assertion when you've not done anything in the space. You are simply talking. And so I have run into that a myriad of times. And here's what's a really fascinating thing about being specifically an African-American male technologist. I find that many of my interactions are centered around other people's egos, and they believe that they must prove their intellectual superiority to me by saying terms to me that I already understand. But what they don't realize is it's often devoid of actual context and nuance. And so, as a prime example, we'll go to these different conferences, JQ and I, and the first thing people want to say is, "Oh, you guys use AI, right?" I'm like, "Sure, yeah, we do." Oh, okay. So, what are your thoughts on this thing? And they try to throw these really oddball questions at us to like challenge our intellectual acumen. Normally, I just mentally laugh and think to myself, "You're not actually equipped to have this conversation." But I'll entertain you for a second, and then I'll like leave
because
and that goes back to the good vibes part.
Yeah, and the part that I want to also reiterate with Storytailor, okay, is for people listening about the 90 seconds to create this story. It's a story with positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
It's a story that's been well thought out on to ensure that is always its outcome. You cannot put cuss words, negativity, discouragement, disarmament. Like you can't. It's not designed. It is not. It's a world that literally only good vibes can exist. And this is one person that's programmed half of or a multitude of things.
I wish I could take credit for half a program. No, let me
But I'm
set the record straight.
Right, JQ.
JQ did that.
Is the guy
Yes.
who set all of this up, and he's programmed it. Now, I have helped. I go in, I debug. My strategic or my actual advantage in terms of what I bring to the table for our team is I'm really good at top level view. I'm really good at distilling really complicated concepts down to simple elements that we can then go and build. And then I'm actually really good at the debugging process. So a lot of times when you're doing programming, you're so in the weeds that it's easy to miss things that are simple. So he could program a code on something for hours. And then I go and look at the code. I'm like, yeah, you're missing a semicolon on line 36.
Right.
And he's like, oh, that's why this keeps throwing a bug. Or, yeah, this camel casing is off. Like it needs this specific framing because this string has uppercase when it needs lowercase or vice versa, right? So I can go in and just look at the code, especially after he's been like ruminating over for hours, and that's kind of the compliment, and vice versa. Like I could have built something, and he's like, oh yeah, that needs to be in square brackets, not curlies, right? So we have that like that ability to do those things, and that's part of what comes
But I feel
to the
like
table.
Also the root of the question, which was like, what with good vibes only AI, it's like when people have this question of like, Hurston, when they come up to you and they ask you these oddball questions about
Right.
how to like create this worry over what you've created, it's like they haven't done a lot of the research, and also they're like living in a different world. They're living in a fear-based world. It's already grasped them. It's already taken their soul in a way.
Well, I mean,
like,
yeah, and
do you see what I'm saying? Like when someone asks you, like it's like when someone asks me, like, "Gosh, what inspires you to do and be good at kinship?" And you're like, "Well, I'm not here to do bad."
yeah.
Like,
But when you talk about, you said the word research,
yeah,
and I mean, when I was someone and somebody would be like, well, I'm going to do my research, I would get this image of that person like going back home to their big whiteboard, putting on their lab coat, their chart, and doing like lab research. When people say I'm doing my research, like
Right.
it's like I'm doing my own research on the COVID vaccine.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just such a throwaway, ridiculous. It's basically just something to say like, I don't understand, and I'm going to disagree.
I think from
for
my
no-
perspective, it's a theory I'm testing. Like research to me is kind of a very lofty umbrella
Yeah.
type word. For me, I have I have a theory,
Yeah.
and I want to test it out. And sometimes that's with product and raw material like coffee, and sometimes that's just with people.
But I think a lot of times with what you're talking about with
Right.
like the AI conversation, it's
Yep.
like what are you going to do? Look at consumer reports about AI technology? I mean, it's in the media. You
Right.
talk about the talking heads. I mean, you have all of these people presenting themselves as experts. I mean, that's like the last like 50 years of my life just watching what has happened in the media.
Yes.
I mean, I'm a credible resource because I have like these mic stands. Do you know what I mean? Like I can like put this out. I'm going to put this out online,
Right.
and like I mean, and
Right.
it's interesting because people react that way.
Yeah.
I get conversations and meetings with people since we've done the podcast that I wouldn't get before, and the only
Yeah.
thing that's different is like we figured out how to post this shit.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the part that I think it makes it most hard, and what Hertz and I are doing, is that we're kind of the innovators, right? We're kind of like these people that have really spent a lot of time in their research or in their theories or in their discernment, whatever you want to call it, to create something that we've imagined and bringing it to life. And I think that's like, I'll tell it to most, like, if there's anyone in tech that is a male that's black, I pretty much will lean on Herston to see if that person's credible.
Well, let me ask you about that because what you were describing at the conference,
Right.
where you felt like somebody was making a statement, and it was kind of remedial stuff.
100%.
So, do you feel like it's exclusively something that happens because you're black? Because, and the reason I ask that is because I can go into a conference with anybody, and there's going to be somebody who understands a few of the terms,
Right.
and when people's questions aren't really questions, they're simply statements of their own knowledge.
100%.
I don't think. I mean, I think people can kind of be idiots in that regard, regardless of color.
Yeah.
But I would imagine, so
It's a challenging question to answer because people have the ability to, I guess, position themselves in a way that gives them plausible deniability, right? People tend to leave themselves out, especially when they're actually challenged about something. And I've done it a couple times just to be really kind of silly about it. I'm not really a petty person, but
yeah.
sometimes people are kind of weird in person. And so I play to their oddities and then kind of expose, oh, yeah, that was a little bit of your ignorance. I don't actually have to tell you. I let them kind of come to the conclusion on their own.
Yeah.
And I just watch their facial expressions change. So I do find that it does happen quite a bit. I've been around my counterparts who are not African American, and their experience is fundamentally different than ours. And it's I'd be naive to say that it plays absolutely no role, and it would be hyper disingenuous.
And I wouldn't. I mean, I'd be naive to imply that it does.
Right, no, and I don't think that you did, because
yeah.
you asked a really great question.
Thank you.
Because most people, they want to
jump to an
they
assumption.
jump to an assumption
Yeah.
about a multitude of things. What's really fascinating about us is there are many instances where presuppositions drive narrative, and so people haven't done the whole concept of research. Typically means I am going to appease the part of my ego that allows my biases to stay intact and be totally valid, while I can act like I'm actually not bigoted. And I'm from North Carolina.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't call it the birthplace of bigotry, but it's birth adjacent.
It's
And
cousins.
So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
kissing cousins. No pun. So it's really fascinating that it's a little bit more direct out that way than it is here.
Yeah.
You dance in the gray when it comes to the Midwest. People don't have a problem being a bigot. They just don't want everybody else to know.
Yeah.
And so that's the fascinating thing that we run into.
And where I grew up, it
but
was.
hold on, I do
Okay,
want to
yes, sir.
clarify. We've run into this not only in our discussions with one-on-one individuals, so people who come up to us and say, this is our favorite. We love what you do. Okay, awesome. Have you been to the platform? No. Okay, so how can you possibly love what I do?
Yeah.
That is a sidestep. They don't want to actually say, I've done zero knowledge on you. I've heard about you from someone else. Oh, look, you guys are also black. Cool. I'm going to go look at this. Probably not. So next time I can tell you that I admire what you do, and then for some reason that makes you feel better. I don't need you to make me feel better. That doesn't actually help me. The thing that's probably been most damning is we've run into instances where we're in a funding round, right? We're in a raise round right now. And we met expectations. I won't call any names to preserve the sanity and the sanctity of the guilty, but we met everything that this particular organization said that we needed to secure funding to continue our business. Everything. I would even argue we exceeded it, because we signed an NDA. I can't tell you. We have something pretty major that's happening. It's dope. But we even brought that knowledge to them under the guise that you will potentially fund us. They said, yes, you meet all our expectations. Had a whole meeting, whole to do. It was great. Only for them to be, yeah, you don't really fit our thesis. I'm like, yeah, but you wrote the thesis for companies like us. And if you go down every single part of the facts that we have, I'm talking about objective information, and we met every single expectation and then added some additional ones, only for them to say, yeah, you're just not quite a fit, which translates to us, yeah, we probably would have invested in you, but the pigment in your skin prevents us from trusting your actually ability to execute, even though you've built an entire platform, right? And have users. So it's a fascinating thing that we aren't angry. We recognize this is a part of the game. Being funded as a startup is a difficult thing, regardless of how you look and where you come from. That's a fact, specifically in the Midwest.
Yeah.
But it's compounded by how we show up just entering the room.
So
I can relate and resonate with 100% of all that.
So I'm a 50-year-old white guy. All right.
Okay.
I'm in finance, right? I'm a mortgage lender.
Yeah.
And so, I will put on like the 50-year-old white guy who's not Robert Biehl hat for a moment,
Okay.
and be like, come on, man, it's a competitive deal. It's a business. Why do you always have to go to race? You know what I mean? Like, you can see how, it's ignorant, but you can see how somebody jumps to that.
Of course.
And, then put, 50-year-old
But
white,
can I-
50, hold on a second, 50-year-old white guy, Robert Biehl. Okay, now I'm back in the chair having this conversation.
Right.
Unfortunately, we've really done nothing as a society to rule that option out.
I don't think that's actually the case. I think that's ignorance, because I think that's like, before the question's even asked, I'd be like, what room are you standing in? Because that's what I'm asking. It's like, how did you not know? Shit, I look at the equity.
How did you not
look
know
at
what
the equity in the room and know that this is skewed against me in some regards.
Right, I understand.
I think, like, to the regard of like devil's advocate of like, well, how do you know it's directed? It's like, well, look at the room.
Yeah.
Like,
and I don't think I think it's a thing. And when I say that, I think the challenge is that, you know, we've done nothing as a society to really improve that situation.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? That's my point. And so when somebody looks at it and it's like, oh, come on, it's just the free market, it's competitive, it is what it is. You can't make that statement honestly, because the fact is,
look at there's a book that you should check out. It's called Turning the Tides. Okay, it's a story about Alabama's coach in the '60s, and Paul Bryant.
Paul Bryant.
Paul Bryant, yeah. Bear Bryant, thank you. And he's one of the best coaches, like, you know, in NCAA, one of the most winningest. And so, but when he first got to, you know, Alabama, they was trash, man. They was a laughing stock in the league. They was a laughing stock in their conference. And he couldn't get anybody because he couldn't recruit any talent. And his words were, I can't get black talent, you know. And at the time, UCLA's crushing everybody. They've got black talent.
Yeah.
All the teams that were crushing everybody. So what he ended up doing, because he wanted to keep his job, is he snuck around and met the head football coach of UCLA at the LA airport. And he said, I want to do a contract with you. And at the time, they had won two national championships, UCLA had. And they were the worst, you know, Alabama was the worst team. And he struck a deal to play them the first game of every year for the next 2 years. And they got their ass just taken.
all of a sudden color wasn't that big a deal.
Oh, well, yeah, because the boosters are like, man, I mean, yeah, we're winning a game more every year because of your coaching ability.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, how do you expect me to win when we're playing against that?
Right.
And that's when everybody realized in that community, oh, maybe there's a better opportunity bringing different talent in. And it doesn't, that was the acknowledgement of them looking in the room and going, oh, yeah, I guess everybody else is doing it. Why not us? And for that story and in that book, it was to show the likes of those people that the old ways of what was obsolete is no longer obsolete.
Yeah.
And I think the part of the questioning of that question reads me to say this person's ego is so large that they're so ignorant to understand that that way of thought is no longer the way of thought.
Right.
It's the lack of being able to look into the room and say, wow, I mean, if I'm at a dance, okay, if you go to a dance and it's 50-50 man and woman, I hope everybody gets to dance. I hope everybody gets to dance. But if I'm being honest, as a single man, I'm not going to no dance with a 70-30 split on men to women. Okay, yeah. I'm not doing that. That don't sound like fun to me. Not even 90-10. I'm not doing it. I want 50-50. I want everybody to dance. But the part that I'm trying to say is you got to be able to walk around the room.
Yeah.
You know, if I go to this dance and I see that it's 50-50 and I see some cute girls, but I never seen nobody, ain't never been with a girl like that or seen somebody, but I'm interested, they look interesting. If I never go across the room and talk to them, I will never get that number.
Yeah.
I'll never learn their perspective. I'll never get to hear and understand who and what makes them the woman they are. And so for me, it's the same way politically that I see when people come around and say, man, I'm so surprised Trump won. How did you, what room was you in? Because that ignorance is why we're here. Because you could go all around the room and know what was going on. You just was so happy in your corner at the dance that you didn't get to ask the cute girl across the room that was in the red dress her number. You know what I'm saying?
I do want to make sure that I address because you made a great point. I think even in TJ's summary of that book, one of the things that's important to note is the level of effort required to even have that conversation.
Seriously.
Right? Why should a person have to go through all of those things to qualify, to even be able to have a conversation that is sensible and logical, right? So typically what happens when we run into, as you stated, the 50-year-old white man, and the very first thing that we hear from them is, well, it's just the market. It's just the way it is. Just build better, right? What we tend to find is that we've already built well, really well. We're not asking for anything exorbitant. We're asking for what you said you sold. So, to your car dealership analogy, right? If I come into you and I know in your inventory you have a Mercedes S-Class 550, right? I know you have it.
That's a good
I know
dealership
you
right
have the year that I'm looking for. I know the color I want, the spec that I want, and all of that. I know this before I come in. This is a pre-qualifier. I come in and we begin to have a conversation about me wanting to buy that vehicle, right? And then you say, well, yeah, you can get this. And I'm like, oh, great. But here are the terms. I'm like, perfect. I have all my paperwork. I did my due diligence. I did my research. I have it all set up.
You came ready to buy.
Here's the I have the check for what you're asking for. Yeah, but here's the thing, right? We added another provision that you actually need this other thing now. And unfortunately, you don't meet the expectations of that because the market has changed. You're like, as we sat here, yeah. So this just happened like a couple days ago. It's like, okay, that's crazy, but okay, I'll take that because I really want this vehicle. Bet I'll go back and I'll get that thing. Then I come back the next day, and you're like, yeah. So it looks like you meet all these qualifications. Here's the thing, though. There's this one other thing that just happened this morning in the market that now requires you to have this additional piece of identification, and unfortunately, you don't have it, but this other person does. So I'm sorry, we can't give that to you. We have to get. So this is what tends to happen in our world. Again, I want to stress and emphasize, we are not angry about this. This is the reality.
It's hard to not be. I'll be honest.
TJ. This is the reality of what we are dealing with. We don't allow it to drive us to a level of insanity, but I would be remiss if I acted like it did not negatively impact us emotionally. It is absolutely a battle scar. There's multiple versions of it that we deal with, which actually goes back to the very first question about why the robot dogs. Because at the end of the day, that differentiator, do we need to pause while you switch? No, keep going. Okay. That differentiator allows us to break the first perceived barrier of unapproachability, which is typically the very first thing that we run into when we enter a room. And that's the fascinating part of this entire experience. And to answer your question about the race card, right? I always find the analogy of leveraging a card as a fascinating thing. And then I go to a poker analogy, right? I play the hand I'm dealt. If you don't want me to use the race card, then don't deal me that card. Yeah. And oftentimes when I enter the room, that's the card I'm dealt. Yeah. This moment, I am 6'5". Most people can't tell this because I'm on camera, but I'm a tall person, right? I'm not small. And so the very first card that gets dealt typically when I enter a room, if I'm in a room of people who I don't like the term color blindness. I think that's also
no, because you have to be aware of it.
Yes,
you simply can't deny it.
Denying
it is
it's like do you go to?
I just account for that as a human being accounts for somebody who's moody or who is short or whatever.
And that's okay to make an observation. The challenge is, does that observation prevent you from allowing this person to build trust versus work their way from an area of distrust by default? And that's the difference, right? Yeah. And so I think it's just important to point out that we recognize the statement that you made. We hear it all the time, right? This is not, just build better for the market. We've heard it. It's always fascinating that that's the first thing people run to. And I often find it as a way of scapegoating themselves out of any type of accountability or responsibility into thinking deeper about what's obviously happening. Because I can shortcut to that and say, I don't want to have to think any deeper than this. Your problem is your business is not strong enough. Well, we have users global, like literally globally. We have people who right now are building stories in Italy. We have people who are building stories in the Ukraine. We have a contingency of people who are building stories in France. Like we're from Kansas City.
Yeah.
Right. So it's this part that that it confuses us a little bit, but we're aware it's a part of it.
So when you talk about, I'm sorry, when you talk about like when people are like, hey, it's the market, be better in the market.
Right.
You know, I think the interesting thing about, in my opinion, like sort of like this hyper-capitalist, profit-driven, you know, in our society, the holiest attribute that you can have is the ability to generate a profit.
Yes.
Right or wrong, but that's how we behave.
Yeah.
And so I find that the profit motive, and specifically like how a corporation is set up and the idea that it exists solely to return shareholder value,
Right.
I find that it makes us say things like, well, the market, be better in the market,
Right.
or have better value.
Right.
And it creates a situation where those are like throwaway terms that can count for anything.
Yeah.
Listen, you just didn't succeed in the market. And your point is, and I think the whole point of this conversation is, the market is like nobody's starting at the same spot.
No.
Right.
Do you know what I
for
mean?
sure.
There is a bias as human beings, and so we put it on like the market. We put it on corporations. Well, all that is just stuff we've made up. So it's on us.
100%.
It's not the market.
Yeah, and I think the other aspect of it too is like how healthy is that approach, even from a capitalistic view. Like, you look at America. If we can write the biggest check or buy the biggest bomb, does that make us the best?
No, I mean innovation
Right.
that people say the market is going to create. People are like, well, the market is going to create. The market's not going to necessarily innovate for efficiency. It's going to innovate for dollars,
Yeah.
for profitability.
Yeah,
And
for
so,
sure.
okay, so we need to wind this down. And I got a couple really important conversations that I want to go with. And you had leave on. You had just talked about being a single guy, being at the dance or whatever.
Yeah.
And so because I feel like we've covered some important stuff. If you're on a dating app, what is the description somebody will have that for sure you're past swiping left, you're out? Like you're out in their little summary. What's a word, what's something somebody's going to say and you're like, I'm out. Swipe left immediately.
I'll be honest, it used to be kids.
Yeah.
But I've changed on views of
I mean,
dating
kids
women.
would be a big part for me. I love kids, but I've had plenty and
Dating women with kids doesn't sound near as bad anymore as I've gotten
Oh,
older.
okay.
So I'd say that's what it used to be. I'd say now, this is going to sound pretty obvious. I mean, if somebody literally is like, I'm loving the political realm right now, that would probably be something that would be very difficult, just personally. But also, and the work that we're doing. But I would also say, man, I hate to say this, but Christianity right now doesn't sound super attractive. You know what I'm saying? I actually am more interested in someone who says that they're spiritual than they would say they're religious or that they are Christian.
In some ways, I feel like I made a mistake with this question because I believe that I think as a group, especially and as individuals, we're reasonably deep thinkers.
Dude.
This was kind of a throwaway question, but I'm going to commit to it. What about you?
I see your point, Rob.
It's a difficult question for me to ask. I don't really subscribe to the balloon pop red flag culture. It's not really my jam.
Do you want me to move on to the next question, or you want to try to answer that one?
I mean, I'll do my best. I think the greatest challenge that I have is I need a person who has imagination.
Yeah.
And who has the ability to manage compassion. And
So how do you see that in a summary,
In a
on
summary?
Twitter on Tinder? I mean, how does that manifest? What's the phrase that they use?
I'm probably the worst person to ask this because I prefer in-person interactions. But I guess
That's fair.
I guess when I read the description, if I give a silly answer to get out of this
Yeah.
quickly, if you use the wrong version of
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
man.
out.
No, that
I mean-
100%. That's and that you know what that is exactly that's a great answer. So we're gonna move on to the
answer, but that's the easiest way.
No,
to
that
get
works.
I think
Some-
if it's like, you can't speak full sentences, or if
Yeah.
your profile, I'll tell you what, when I was on social dating apps at one point in my life, if it was like Princess, if her name was
Yeah.
Princess or something that I knew was not authentic, I was just so out.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well, we'll cover more of this on the next episode. Okay. So Kansas City, Kansas City food,
oh man,
barbecue or street tacos? It's a common theme on these episodes.
man.
Barbecue.
If you had to
What?
get rid of one, would you get rid of the barbecue or would you
Street
get rid of
tacos.
the
Get rid of
so,
or
so you're
take?
for the barbecue?
Easily.
Well, just make it clear whichever way you feel.
I think for me it would be tacos, man, because
You'd get rid of the tacos or you keep the tacos?
no, I keep the tacos.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Because look, I've been to some major cities, and this is taco capital.
Yeah,
You know,
I
this
agree.
is-
I think, listen, we do barbecue better than anybody else, but the hit rate for the taco places is much higher than, in my opinion.
And KCK, I just know I miss it.
Right.
Just for that reason.
Right,
Just
I can get
for
that.
the amount of tacos that.
All right, so the last question I have, and I want it to be very quick, very sweet, like just concise. So I'm going to start with you. What technology scares you the most?
I am curious on this answer, actually.
You want to think about that while TJ gives me his?
Yeah, I don't.
Think about it, bro. Let me.
Yeah,
have a
what
moment.
technology scares you the most, TJ?
Right now, automated food. You know, you see robots at coffee conventions pouring lattes and creating, drinks. And I think with coffee being such a human-centric, influential, operational thing, that you lose the ability for people to have the intentionality of being
Yeah.
served,
No, I think-
and I think for a person who serves quite a bit of people, and
Yeah.
I'm not married and don't get served at all,
Yeah,
there's something to say about being served.
100%. That makes sense. You got an answer? That's deeper than what I was expecting. Just because I thought it was a throwaway question until I sat down. It wasn't meant for Herston, but he's here.
Yeah. Probably computer vision, specifically within the artificial intelligence spectrum.
Okay.
It's grossly unregulated and trained off of biases that are beyond the control of people who will be disproportionately disenfranchised by its misuse.
I mean, that's real. It's also a lot heavier than what I thought the end of this conversation was going to be, and probably worth us getting back together to have another conversation.
A part two that could be a little more uplifting,
Yeah.
and get maybe more into some details on why we are so. I say this like to the part that Herston was mentioning, where there's scars. Like the higher and higher, Rob, I hope that you continue to reach for the black excellence in the rooms of Kansas City. You'll see more of the scars that are
Yeah.
remnants of people that claim to be feel-good people. Organizations that claim to do feel-good work.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that work isn't important and it's not needed. It's definitely needed, but doesn't mean that it's perfect.
Well, I mean,
Or
all
that
you
it's
can do
designed even for us.
all you can do is show up in the rooms, have the conversations, like try to be sincere, authentic, and and just hope that at this level, right here, that we're making a difference and we're listening to each other. So,
Yeah, man.
all right. Well,
Thank you so
okay,
much.
yeah. So, I mean, if somebody wants to find Kinship Cafe or find more about Kinship Cafe, how do they do it?
You can follow us at kinshipcafe.kc on both Instagram and TikTok. We also have a Facebook, but just time to change into everything.
Yeah.
And then, we're here in Independence at 106. Oh man, I almost said the old address. Wow,
I can
that's
see how
out
that
of-
would be easy.
Oh man, yeah, that's oof. But Kinship, you can find us at 10725 East US 24 Highway here at Independence, right off Highway 24. We have a drive-through. We're open till 4 p.m. on weekdays, and weekends we are open 8 to 2:30 on Saturdays. So every second and the fourth, we do just community roundup kind of events. That's usually with vendors, or it's with something with your mind, body, and spirit, or it's with music and entertainment and some of the, creatives here in KC.
Yeah.
And so that's something I'm really passionate about with my background in music and, food being such a gathering catalyst, for people to come from different backgrounds and get together. And, back in the old times, people used to just share so much with each other.
Yeah.
About their life and what they came from around food and drink. And so we're trying to encourage people to do that the same way, hundreds of years later.
Dude, you and I have something in common.
What's that?
We fucking talk a lot.
Dude.
And
real.
so, okay, so Herston, other than being at obviously at the robot dog parks, you could be found there. If somebody wants to track you down or learn
they got
more
oil
about
changes over there.
how do they do it?
Storytailor Inc. Should be on everything. That's the easiest way to find us on Instagram for sure, Facebook as well. Allegedly, we're on TikTok as well. I'm not over in the TikTok sphere as much, but we're there. If you're just trying to get in contact with me, Herston Fails, super easy to find on LinkedIn for business. If you're trying to follow anything that I'm doing on socials, I do a little light posting on IG. I am Curious NRD, so Curious Nerd, and I can also be found on Facebook as well. The spelling of my name is kind of unique, so I'm super easy to find. And for Storytailor, it's Taylor like you tailor clothes, not Taylor Swift. I have to be very specific because of the new things that are happening in Kansas City. So
absolutely.
Good girl.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being a part of it. Again, I'm Robert Biehl. You've watched the Biehlcast here at Kinship Cafe, and we're out.